What's up, gentlemen? This is Emancipated Soul. Today I want to talk about understanding and predicting female behavior. First, I want to address some falsehoods. We've been led to believe that women are some sort of elusive mystic beings and to view their nature as an enigma. Women have for decades, maybe even centuries, hid behind masks and have used emotional prestidigitation as well as manipulative mind games against men such as the shit test in order to maintain that illusion. For those of you who are new to the manosphere, I'm going to explain the shit test. And this comes straight out of Reddit. The issue of what's popularly referred to as shit test, aka fitness test, comes up enough that I've decided to write up a post so we can put this issue to rest for a while. When it comes right down to it, shit tests are typically women's way of flirting. Women generally do not shit test men they do not have interest in. So if you're getting them, then it's often a good thing. Let's look at what shit tests actually are. Rapport breaks. Rapport breaks are a type of flirting where women throw you a faux indicator of disinterest to see how you handle it. If you respond in kind, then you pass. In essence, it's a form of mirroring each other's level of investment, or as they say, like attracts like. So why are rapport breaks a form of flirting? The main reason is that it gives women a degree of emotional stimulation, plus the fact that most men buckle under women's shit tests and do not respond in kind. This demonstrates a lack of social acumen and emotional maturity. Those who, quote, pass, show that they can handle a woman's BS and is, quote, on her level, so to speak. This is where the evolutionary theory comes into play. You're demonstrating her faux negative does not faze you, and you are an emotionally developed person who isn't going to melt down at the first sign of trouble. Ergo, you'll be able to protect her when threats to her safety emerge. Men have been conditioned to believe that women are so complicated, but in reality, understanding women and their motives is quite simple after you cut through the bullshit. Basically, there are three characteristics that once you understand them, easily explain 90 to 95% of female behavior. Think about it. Fortune 500 companies, entertainment industries, and advertisers make billions annually based on their understanding of female nature. Three basic principles or characteristics I'm referring to are 1. Hypergamie, 2. Briffault's law, and 3. Solipsism. Knowledge of these three characteristics not only will help you understand women's motives, but also will help you predict their behavior as well. Now, in order to keep this video brief, I will not delve deeply into all three of these characteristics, but will provide links for independent study. Also, as you reflect on the concepts I'm about to present, you will likely be able to recognize collaborating evidence manifested in your own lives. Hypergamie. Let's start with the dictionary definition, then move to a more practical and empirical observation of hypergamie. Hypergamie is generally defined as dating and ultimately marriage to a person of higher economic and social caste. Wikipedia had this to say about hypergamie. Studies of heterosexual mate selection in dozens of countries around the world have found that men and women report prioritizing different traits when it comes to choosing a mate, with men tending to prefer women who are young and attractive, and women tending to prefer men who are rich, well-educated, ambitious, and attractive. Evolutionary psychologists contend that this is an inherent sex difference arising out of sexual selection, with men driven to seek women who give birth to healthy babies and women driven to seek men who will be able to provide the necessary resources for the family's survival. In prehistoric times through history, hypergamie has been a biological imperative for females. So I don't really see it as a good or evil thing. It's just biology. And that female instinct has aided in the propagation of our species. And shaming women for hypergamie would be like shaming men for being drawn to young and attractive women. That's just the way it is. Hypergamie is just something that men should keep in the back of their minds when dealing with women. Chris Rock, he made a joke that really explained hypergamie. And I'm going to paraphrase here, but the joke went something like this. He was explaining hypergamie to women. He said, "Women, Men, we need to have money, because a man, if he doesn't have money, he's not going to get any sex. Women, no one will ever not fuck you because you're broke. So I thought that was kind of a, funny way to explain, and realistic way to explain hypergamy. Now there's a MGTOW axiom, alpha fucks and beta bucks. And what that means is that women typically, when they're in their 20s, will go after alpha male bad boy types. And then as her biological clock starts ticking down, she'll look for a stable beta male provider. Unfortunately, for some men, they find this out as their first red pill lesson. For example, there was this guy who came home one day to find a video, which he kept since college, of his wife having relationships with various and sundry alpha males. He found out years too late. Even when he confronted her with the evidence, she didn't give a damn about his feelings on the matter and expected him to care about hers. She just wanted the reliable normalcy of the marriage which he had provided for so many years to continue. Her stage tears were only in reaction to the threat of not being able to collect a lifetime alimony should he decide for a messy, costly extraction. Had he known the word hypergamy before the wedding, there might not have been one. Hypergamy has cost women too. There was an article in the Daily Mail by a woman named Karen Cross, and she says, "I left the love of my life because I thought I could do better. Now I am childless and alone at 42. Laughing and dancing with my fiancé at our engagement party, I thought I might actually burst into happiness. Surrounded by our family and friends, I looked at Matthew and felt certain I had met the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Quite simply, he was my soulmate. It all seemed so simple to my naive 19-year-old self. I smugly told myself, the girl who had it all. So why, 20 years later, did I find myself single, childless, and tormented by the fact that I had thrown away the only true chance of happiness I had ever had? 8 years after that wonderful engagement party in 1998, I walked away from my dear, devoted, loyal Matthew, convinced that somewhere out there, a better, more exciting, more fulfilling life awaited me. Only there wasn't. Now, the important thing here is not that she walked out on her soulmate Matthew, but why? It's obvious that she thought she could do better, but why did she think she could do better? She goes on to say, I still loved him, but began to feel embarrassed by his blue-collar jobs, annoyed that despite his intelligence, he didn't have a career. Then he bought a lurid blue and pink VW Beetle. Why couldn't he drive a normal car? Things that now seemed incredibly insignificant began to niggle. I began to wish he were more sophisticated and earned more. I felt envious of friends with better off partners who were able to support them as they started their families. You notice that hypergamy and entitlement go hand in hand. And those are female relationship killers. Those are characteristics which men should always keep in mind and be especially wary of. A lot of men get this false sense of security that, hey, because they're a good man, they're a good provider, that their wife won't leave them. Or that their wife is loyal. Here this guy Matthew, he was loyal, but because she thought she could, not only did she think she could do better, but that she deserved better, right? Love and fidelity, that wasn't enough for her. She was embarrassed by his blue-collar job. So women don't love you the way that you love them. Their love is not based on who you are intrinsically as a person. It's based on, external things. What you do. Do you have a career? How it makes them look. What kind of car you're driving, and so on and so forth. Now let's talk about Brifault's law. For those of you who might be new to MGTOW, the quote law or theory is named after Robert Stephen Briffault, who lived from 1876 through 1948. and he was a social anthropologist as well as a trained surgeon. Now, Briffault's law states, the feminine, not the male, determines all conditions of the animal family. Where the female can derive no benefit from associating with the male, no such association takes place. There are a few corollaries that were added since. A. Past benefit provided by the male does not provide for continued or future association. B. Any agreement where the male provides a current benefit in return for a promised or future association is null and void as soon as the male has provided the benefit. See Corollary 1. C. A promise of future benefit has limited influence on current/future association, with the influence inversely proportional to the length of time until the benefit will be given and directly proportionate to the degree to which the female trusts the male, which is not likely. I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a female friend that was going through a divorce. Now, back in the day, women used to divorce for basically 3 reasons. You know, the 3 A's: abuse, adultery, or addiction. And my friend's husband had none of those 3 problems. He was, by her admission, a good husband and a good father. He had retired from the Navy after 21 years as an enlisted and was working a part-time job at a hardware store. And he was happy with that, because that allowed him more freedom to pursue his hobbies and more time with his kids. But that wasn't good enough for her. She wanted someone more ambitious. That's the way she described it to me, that they were growing apart and he wasn't ambitious enough. And it got to a point where she was making more money than him. Now, he didn't spend a lot of money. He pretty much deferred to her as far as financial decisions. He had his car or whatnot, and that was about it. It wasn't like he was wilding out, flossing and spending a lot of money. So I really had a hard time wrapping my mind around why she was divorcing him. That is until I learned about hypergamy and Briffault's law. Now, keep in mind, this man provided for her and their children when she was pregnant and after she was pregnant when he was in the military. But you have to look at that first corollary. Past benefit provided by the male does not provide for continued or future association. Okay, just because he provided for her in the past, there was no loyalty there. She still wanted him to be ambitious. Even though he had done his time in the military, working a part-time job wasn't good enough for her. So now let's move on to solipsism. As we did with hypergamy, let's start with the dictionary definition, then move to more practical and empirical observations of solipsism. Solipsism is a theory in philosophy that our own existence is the only thing that is real or that can be known. It's also referred to as extreme egocentrism. Another way to think of it is as narcissism on steroids. Since solipsism is such an abstract concept, it's best explained using concrete examples. Let's take department stores. The vast majority of real estate and department stores are dedicated to products and services for women. I remember one time in Chicago, I went to a Lord & Taylor's department store. It had multiple floors. I can't remember exactly, but I'm going to say it had about 12 floors. And 7 of those 12 floors were just dedicated to women's departments. And then in the town I live in, we have a small mall, and there's a Macy's in the mall. And the Macy's is basically divided into 2 stores. There's a store for women that has things like, women's apparel, accessories, jewelry, makeup, and things of that nature. And then there's another smaller store for men and children. Fat acceptance is another example of female solipsism. For example, make a critical comment about a behavior trait that the woman possesses without making any reference to her. For example, tell a fat woman that obesity costs the healthcare system more than $150 billion a year. Now, she will either A, question the source of your data, B, point out a flaw in your reasoning. For example, the system also saves money due to shorter lifespans of the obese, Or C, she'll ask you if you are indirectly criticizing her. Or D, immediately start explaining why she possesses that trait. You know, she has a thyroid problem, she's had a baby, so on and so forth. Now, I don't have a problem with overweight women. If they want to keep stuffing their faces with McDonald's and eating fatty fat cakes, that's their prerogative. However, it's very egotistical and narcissistic to tell men what they should or should not find attractive. As comic relief, and as an example of female solipsism, I'm going to play a video clip of a man explaining time and distance to his wife.
Alright, we're traveling from Logan to Boise, and I just proposed a math question to my beautiful wife, Chelsea. And the question, very difficult to calculate, is if you are traveling 80 miles per hour, how long does it take you to go 80 miles? Okay, what do you think, Chel? Let's go through the process. What do you think?
Well, if I run the mile in about 9 minutes...
Wait, what about the tire turning thing you were talking about? You think that affects it?
Well, I'm just guesstimating probably about... It turns about 400 times in a mile.
That's just guessing calculations?
Yeah, I don't know how you would work that out.
It'd be tough.
Yeah, so... I don't know. Because if I run a mile in like 9 minutes, then... I mean, but that's when I'm out of shape. When I'm really in shape at like 7 minutes is when I'm like really in shape. And that takes me a mile. And we're going 80 miles. I'm running in about probably 10 miles per hour, if that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty fast for a human being, I think. But, I mean, it's got to take at least like 58 minutes or something.
58 minutes? It's pretty close.
To go 80 miles.
Do you want to know what the answer is?
What?
Think about 80 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So how long does it take me to go 80 miles if I'm traveling 80 miles per hour?
You are driving faster than a minute a mile.
Yeah, totally.
So I would whack 80 in half, and that's 40. Because, I mean, you're probably going 2 minutes a mile.
Just whack it in half.
Well, it depends on it. I mean, some cars' tires turn faster than others.
Yeah, definitely affects it.
Because, I mean, I think a truck probably is slower because it weighs more.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it also matters if your car's a stick or automatic.
Okay, Chal.
What?
Think about the term miles per hour.
MPH.
MPH. So if I say I'm driving 80 miles per hour, that means I'm going to go 80 miles in an hour.
No, you are not, because you are driving faster than a mile a minute. I can run 1 mile in 7 minutes, and that's a 10. Okay? So, I mean, that's booking it too.
Okay, so if I'm going 60 miles per hour?
Then it'll take about 30 minutes. I would just cut it right in half.
I'm trying to explain the answer, but...
Well, you are not making sense, because I make sense, you do not make sense.
Now notice how the first thing she goes to is relating it to herself. Well, I can go run 7 miles an hour if I'm in shape, or if I'm not in shape, you know, it takes me 9 minutes to run a mile, and so on and so forth. You know, it's all about her, and the world revolves around her. It has nothing to do with, I don't know, objective math or science or anything like that. It's how she perceives the world. And then even after he explains the facts of that, yeah, if you're traveling at 80 miles an hour, it takes you an hour to go 80 miles. That's just a fact. And then she's so solipsistic that she doesn't even accept it. It doesn't even register. She doesn't go, oh, of course, how silly of me. She reverts back, you know, collapses back into her navel and says, well, that doesn't make sense. You don't make sense. I make sense. Incredible. Men often bang their heads against the wall trying to understand so-called female logic, not realizing that this logic fallacy is based on women's feelings, not fact. Something else I want to mention is that I'm not saying that this solipsistic logic never applies to men. I'm saying that it is more of an innate female characteristic. And not all women are equally solipsistic. For example, I've worked with many female engineers that are skilled at rationally coming to conclusions using logic. And these women tend to be, not very solipsistic. I mean, the scale can range from, 1 to 10. It depends on the woman. But as a general rule, women tend to be solipsistic and have a hard time separating facts from their feelings. Also, female solipsism explains their sense of entitlement to male resources and labor. Now, while feminists, demand equality, they're still not willing to do away with old traditions, such as they're not willing to entertain or to champion presumptive shared parenthood, where there's no child support and both men and women are equally responsible for the caring and nurturing of a child that they have together. Nor do they want to end lifetime alimony. In fact, just recently in Florida, a law that was proposed to end lifetime alimony, that was struck down. They'll continue to demand more and more social resources until, the nation is bankrupt. And people, scratch their head and go, well, can't they see this coming? Well, no, because solipsistic people, they're short-term thinkers. They can't see into the future, nor do they care. So in conclusion, I want to say that all these things I've mentioned are not a diss to women. I'm painfully aware that as men we have our own proclivities and negative traits. My purpose in making this video is to wake men up, to alert them to the unique dangers they face. And I hope to alleviate some of the frustration they experience when dealing with and trying to understand the motivations of women. I know it sounds cliche, but knowledge really is power. The knowledge of their own weakness coupled with the knowledge of true female nature, men can emotionally arm themselves. I want men to arm themselves to protect themselves. I'm tired of seeing men psychologically, financially, and emotionally destroyed because they don't understand these principles, or maybe don't even know about them. I see these men just lining up like lambs to a slaughter, thinking that women love them in the same way that they love women, thinking that women love them unconditionally, that women have their back no matter what, when they don't. The type of love that women feel is conditional. Are there exceptions to the rule? Well, of course there are. But as a general rule, women will default back to Briffault's law. So let's read that again. The female, not the male, determines all conditions of the animal family. Where the female can derive no benefit from association with the male, no such association takes place. Now, just recently, we had a member of our community that was ready to commit suicide. And we all know that men commit suicide at rates at least 4 times that of women. And most of those suicides are due to relationship breakdowns. And what typically happens, and let's see this over and over again, for whatever reason, a man is not able to produce and provide at the same level as he had before. It could be due to an accident, an injury on the job, sickness that's out of his control. It could be due to a layoff. And all of a sudden, that support that he thought he had, that love that he thought he had, disappears, is nowhere to be found from the woman that he put so much trust in. And he's left reeling. His whole sense of identity, his whole world is shattered. And he starts to spiral into this pit of depression that begins to spiral so deep that he can't reach out of it. So how many men would be saved if they had known these 3 simple principles of female nature? You know, Turd Flinging Monkey described female love as the type of love that you would have for an object, you know, like a house or a car. Now, as long as the car is shiny and new and performing and working well, you know, you might love that car. But as the car gets older and older, it'll start to need repairs. It might break down on you quite frequently. The paint will start to fade. And you won't love that car as you once did. And you'll be ready to look into trade it in for a new one. Same thing with a house. I mean, when you first move into a new house, oh man, it's a great feeling. It's euphoric. You love that house. You build memories. But as soon as the roof gets old, the water heater goes out, the flooring needs replacing, and it just becomes a Sisyphean task just to keep up with the maintenance, that love for that house can fade. And so it is with the love a woman feels for a man. So gentlemen, just in closing, just don't delude yourself. Just be aware that women don't love us for who we are, but what we can do for them. This is Emancipated Soul. Thank you for listening.